Shrug family, this week on Barbell Shrugged, Brandon Cullen is coming into the podcast. He is the owner of the Metabolic Fitness franchise, which is very cool. One, you're going to start to understand my borderline obsession with the NHL these days. Best product in the world, and he used to play professional hockey, so you're going to have to listen to me talk about hockey for a little bit. For all you NHL fans out there. Also, the first I actually heard of Brandon was probably about a decade ago when I owned my gyms, and he was just starting to build this franchise. So it's very cool to kind of understand and see when he started it about a decade ago, and then how it's grown, how many locations, kind of all the things that go into building a franchise, which in my opinion is a very cool pursuit, something I never really thought about when I owned gyms, but now understanding kind of like the business landscape and fitness side of things, like how people put all of their ducks in a row to get where they're at, call it a decade later of stacking bricks in the right direction. So very cool conversation. And as always, friends, you can get over to aratelab.com. That is where you can learn about all things labs, lifestyle, performance, testing, analysis, and coaching that we do here inside Arate, the signature program inside Rapid Health Optimization. You can access all of that over at aratelab.com. Friends, let's get into the show. Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Anders Varner, Doug Larson, Coach Travis Bass, Brandon Cullen. Yo, we had to start the show or I would have been talking to you about minor league hockey for like the rest of maybe the day, all the way into the weekend. I could have done it forever. We're talking about the differences between each step up on the pro ladder, hockey being it's the greatest sport of all time. But as we'll introduce you, Metabolic, and all those fun pieces. But let's talk sports performance, man.
Nice.
Where'd you play in college? Did you go to college or play juniors?
No, I played major juniors in Canada and transitioned right
Yeah.
to semi-pro there.
Wait,
Yeah.
what major junior league? OHL?
OHL. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was lucky. My final year, we ended up winning the OHL championship, which was a wild
Yeah.
experience. So we got to play in the Memorial Cup. So
How many
yeah, it was
leagues
good.
are there?
Oh,
Can we just for our audience,
billion. Here's the
I
like
thing.
how many
mean,
leagues?
Here's
How do you
the
get to
thing.
the
This is
NHL?
Well,
dude. Yeah.
what we're talking about here is the Canadian Hockey League, and there's three divisions. So the OHL, the Quebec League, and then the Western League make up the CHL. Those are the top leagues in the world for 17 to 21 year olds. So there's a lot of other leagues, but that would be like your
Okay.
Premier League for that age prior to then going to professional. And if you chose the college route, you'd be somewhere wedged in the middle there.
And a lot of those guys that go into college now are like 20 that have played 2 years and like the Q and
Well, you know what's
Quebec Major Junior, and then they go to college.
Well, you know what's nice is when I played, it wasn't an option. As soon as you played one game in major junior, you forfeited your NCAA eligibility, which kind of sucked because, depending on where you were from a maturity level,
Yeah.
like a physicality level, I mean, a 17-year-old boy is very different than a 21-year-old man. And a lot of people get into college at that 19, 20, where you're much more developed playing with men at that point. So it's now switched, which is
Yeah.
great. And you don't have to forfeit because everyone, when I was playing there, like we're talking, these are caliber players for full scholarships,
Yeah.
NCAA scholarships that you just took off the table, which kind of
Yeah.
sucks.
My
Yeah.
favorite thing to do right now is one, watch Connor McDavid. So second favorite, we'll say, is to like turn on a BC or BEU hockey game,
Yeah.
and they're playing the other most awesome 18 to 22 year olds in the world. But the problem is that um like Celebrini was at he was at BC last year or BU? I can't remember.
Yeah, I
Either
can't
one,
either. Yep.
one of them. But he's like the best 17-year-old in the world playing against men, and
Hmm.
no one can touch him. The problem or the most fun part of watching college hockey is like sometimes Celebrini's on the ice with like an accountant. And like you just it's so obvious that he's supposed to be in NHL and that other guy's supposed to be behind a desk. He's just living out the rest of his years in college
Yeah.
playing awesome college hockey. But you can find
Explain what you're talking about. So you had an NHL guy that went backwards. Now he's
so Celebrini specifically was 17 years old playing at BC or BU. Like they finished second in all of college hockey last year. But
right.
these guys that are coming up are so freaking good at hockey that they can essentially get drafted at 17 years old. But they go and play like a
Holy,
year of college hockey to just grow a little bit, so they're not out there with like 32-year-old
and just
men that
absolutely
are,
just slay these people.
yeah,
When
but
they're
they
in
can't
college,
catch
they
them.
just crush them.
Um,
Yeah.
but also Celebrini, who's 17, likely could have gotten drafted in the first round out of high school. Um, Also is lined up against guys that are like the third liners on Colgate's team. That's going to be like the guy you called to do your taxes at the end of the year.
Well, here's a good thing though too. Look at it the other way. Pretty good way to get an accounting degree. Play some hockey, get an
Phenomenal
accounting
way.
degree, you
I
know?
wish
So
I had
Yeah.
gotten my
Yeah.
yeah,
accounting degree that way.
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Um, well, let's
Are the schools like
yeah.
it's still going to be like what is it, Colorado College? What are
Oh,
the
they're
best
good.
hockey?
Denver hockey
Yeah.
is blown up in college too. Like Arizona
It's
State used to be a really good club team, and I think they're pretty legit.
St. Cloud State, some Minnesota school, right?
well, even
All of them.
even at the professional level, like players now, it's not as attractive to play the winter months in New York City when you can play in Scottsdale, Arizona, or you can play in
Yeah.
Florida. So it's really shifted. And even like when you think of the Canadian teams, right, because of some of the money implications and taxes and stuff like that, like it's not as attractive to play in Toronto anymore.
Yeah.
When you have options like I'm in Tampa today, playing for the Lightning would be unbelievable.
You
Like
imagine making like $1 million a year playing hockey, and then Trump
oh
gets
my,
elected. And now your salary just got cut in half.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
you're on freaking Canadian welfare checks playing pro hockey. It's terrible.
Sounds like what I was paid.
Ride the bus. Last question about the ECHL. How many times did you have to fight somebody in a given week, or did you score all the goals?
No, I was definitely not I would have been considered like a power forward. So kind of like a utility guy that was good enough to play on some of the top lines, but also tough enough to step in when you had to. Kind of like a generalist that was never a liability, but also not the kind of like star player. So yeah,
Very good at
fighting
blocking
especially,
shots.
yeah, and fighting was part of the game when I
Yeah.
played. So
Well,
unfortunately,
it's so much cleaner
15,
now. It's like
15
artwork
to 20
now.
times a
Oh,
season.
really? They don't fight as much now. Like even in
No, they took it
NHL,
out.
they don't fight.
They can't, man. It's brain damage everywhere on that stuff. Go and look at all the
Yeah.
guys from back in the day that used to fight every night, and it doesn't end up well. It's
Yeah, it's sad.
literally, it's bare
I
knuckle
know.
fist fight every night.
Yeah. I know a lot of those guys
That,
from that generation too. Fought a few of them, which is sad. So, yeah, but there's another component to that story too, right? You can do a lot more damage with body contact than you can with a fist. Like we said, if you're
no
flying at
kidding. That's
somebody,
exactly what I was thinking.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's
If I'm
more like
sliding 25 miles an hour, like that's
Oh,
gonna
they're
hurt
getting up to
worse.
like 40, dude. It's like
yeah.
there's been like multiple guys clocked at 39 plus miles an hour this year.
What, dude? That's a car wreck.
Think
I mean,
about how
that's
small that rink is to be going nearly 40 miles an
oh,
hour.
Yeah.
boom.
The scary thing that I think is finally getting some more focused, a lot of the horror and the really sad stories of substance abuse or CTE and all that stuff after the game. Like a lot of people that fell into the dark side of it, there was a lot of layers coming into the head injury, right? So there could have been like some substance abuse trauma that made them the type of player that they were, that then you layer that on top
Yeah.
of a brain injury. Like I think one of the thing that helped me, I had a career-ending concussion, but I also had something that I got right into and a new passion to chase. And I think there's this loss of identity that is just as scary, I think, for professional athletes than just the head injury itself. Now, it's a trigger, but
Yeah.
if you have something to work towards and something to chase again and something to maybe feed that ego or however you want to place it, if you don't have anything post the game, that's when things can really get, interesting.
Dr. Andy Galpin here. As a listener of the show, you've probably heard us talking about the Arte program, which we're all incredibly proud of. It's the culmination of everything Dan Garner and I have learned over more than 2 decades of working with some of the world's most elite performers, award-winning athletes, billionaires, musicians, executives, and frankly, anyone who just wanted to be at their absolute best. Arate is not a normal coaching program. It's not just macros and a workout plan. It's not physique transformation and pre and post pictures. Arate is something completely different. Arate is incredibly comprehensive and designed to uncover your unique molecular signature, find your performance anchors, and solve them permanently. You'll be working with not one person, but rather a full team of elite professionals, each with their own special expertise to maximize precision, accuracy, and effectiveness of your analysis and optimization plan. Arate isn't about treating symptoms or quick fixes. It's about unlocking your full potential and looking, feeling, and performing at your absolute best, physically and mentally, when the stakes are the highest. To learn more, visit aratelab.com. That's ARETE lab.com. Now, back to the show.
I don't know anything about hockey, so I'm hanging out in the background here, but to
Me
relate
too. I'm just loving it.
to relate this to something I know more
You guys
about.
can head out if you want. We're just going to talk hockey for another 45 minutes or so.
No, I'm digging this.
No, but to your point though, Brandon, like whenever I watch MMA, I'm
Me too.
We'll have a show on grappling for you
in
next
that
week,
world.
Doug.
Say what?
So we'll have a show on grappling for you next week. So I just don't have anything to talk about at all.
Well, I'll give you an example, Doug. Like,
but
I would be nervous for what could happen to Sean Strickland in a few years. That's the point I'm trying to make. Like, if he doesn't have that thing and he has that big loss this weekend, he's already a trauma-ridden, like, laced individual. So it could go south quick for someone like that. And you hope they have the support to put them somewhere post-career.
right, which is more or less what I was getting to. It's like every time I see like a UFC superstar that takes a couple years off and then like they have the title and they retired and then they're coming back, I'm like, no, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Like he lost that thing and he doesn't have anything to move on to, and so he's trying to go back to the old thing. He just needs the new thing, but he doesn't have
Yeah.
He just needs
it's like
a new
bad to see. You
thing.
can see it coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
I think the
is a
UFC needs to do a
phenomenal.
better job of helping people step into that next role, like help them find their next thing. You know what I mean?
See, we
Every time I
planned
see
this
somebody,
transition.
like a commentator or something. I'm like, oh, good.
Something,
The new
commentator, a coach.
job found it, but he's not gonna start
No.
fighting.
Yeah.
Or
No.
turn into a gym owner like Brandon did in that phenomenal
Yeah.
segue of me
That
getting
was
lost
amazing.
talking about ice hockey for 15 minutes there.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Tell me, how did that transition out before you go, and then obviously leading to opening a bunch of metabolics all around the country.
Yeah, so fitness was a huge part of my game, right? Because being a kind of fringe player, the only thing I could really control was my off season and whatever I did to build up my body, allowed me to have a better chance of being against some of the best players in the world. So I kind of got just really obsessed with it at a young age. I lucked out too, where I had a great personal trainer from about 16 to 20. And at that time, the hockey world would have done a combination of, let's say, bodybuilding and kind of spinning. That was kind of like the training program. And the trainer that started working with me, his name was Jeff Benoit out of the Greater Toronto area. He had me on Bigger, Faster, Stronger, the football program. So I was Olympic weightlifting, doing a lot of foot speed, doing overspeed development, and I didn't really know what was happening. I would just show up in camp in like a different type of shape than my teammates and people that I would play against. So the thing that was kind of funny was at 21, you kind of go home in the summers and you're doing your skates with people that you played with or against from similar leagues, college, major juniors, professional, and you become buddies like in your local markets. And people started saying, well, Cully, that was like my nickname, and they say, do you mind if we just follow like your training program? And I'm like, yeah, shit, I better get a certification so I can charge people for it. And I kind of fell into like
Smart.
training professional and collegiate people just as partly like training with me. So I would bartend at night, train people in the day, train myself, and then I would go into the season Well, when the career-ending concussion kind of happened, um, it just made more sense to look at the general public because, I everyone wants to be Tom Brady's trainer, but there's a lot of luck and there's a lot of things that have to
A
happen
lot of
to
luck
get
there.
that
Right.
title. And I was real lucky because I kind of saw the very like early years of CrossFit. Like I got
What year?
introduced to it,
What year?
dude.
What year?
So this
I
this is
can
nuts.
peg exactly.
2004, 3 or 4, I was boxing at a gym in downtown
Yeah,
Buffalo to just prepare for the season. And there was some lunatic in the corner doing these workouts.
would have been me. I was there.
And he would put me through what essentially was a GPP finisher at the end of like my mitt work, right? And that, being obsessed with fitness, I'm like, well, what is this CrossFit thing? And I did the same thing we all kind of did. So we were involved in the 125th affiliate owner in the world. So we got to see where it went from military athlete to like general public. And I remember sitting around and being like, fuck, I don't know if like this is what we should be doing with people coming from jazzercise.
Dude, I've had that conversation a lot of times too.
So we were like this is the way I kind of remember it. You kind of had sports specific training, which I would have looped CrossFit into, and then you had
Yeah.
like Bally's total fitness like boot camps.
I was
And there was
running away from that one really hard towards
yeah,
CrossFit. That
and there
was
was
the terrifying. That was the worst. That was the worst career path that I thought I could ever be on, was being like the
Right. Bally's
Bally's
Fitness.
trainer. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
but
You
here's
guys
it.
know Brian did that for a summer job, and I remember just going into Bally's and training in there, and I'd be like, dude, what are you doing here? Like, nothing is. This isn't anything that we do in real life. And he was like,
It's just
"Got my summer
sales.
job,
You're
man.
just
I don't really
making.
know what to say. Like, I got to slang these memberships right now.
Here's what's
That's what
funny
they're
though.
doing. Yeah.
Here's what's
Selling training is what you're
34 bucks a
doing.
month. Here we
But here's
go."
what's
Yeah.
funny, and you guys will appreciate this. So we kind of are like, all right, where is a strength bias approach in the middle that you could train like an everyday athlete past their sport? Let's stay away from the barbell strategically. I love the barbell, but to build a model, let's stay away from it and find something right in the middle of training like everyday people past their sport. And that kind of like morphed into what today is a living, breathing organism, metabolic, that we now franchise the model. Here's what I think is funny. The same level of training that you got at Bally's Total Fitness is now just wrapped up in boutique brands with better colors and better marketing. It hasn't shifted that much to the level of quality you get in boutique. So we really try to offer a much more strength bias coach led um, system, even though we play in pop culture fitness. I can't deny it. We just do. It just is what it is. Yeah.
But so you don't do the barbell thing, but how is it different as far as like the class structure from something like a CrossFit class or any of the other gyms that have popped up that are kind of like CrossFit type competitors that don't use
Yeah.
barbell and
So
whatnot?
we don't get into this from a marketing angle because it's just too hard for the uneducated consumer. But I think like with your fellowship, I can. So like we use energy system training. So we have three different kind of like styles of intervals. So one would be we call momentum. It's like a gradual build in intensity over the course of a workout. Very athletic in nature, like single arm power based movements, jumping and landing, foot speed, but all done to like a 2-to-1 work to rest ratio. We also have anaerobic based intervals that are very straight up and down, straightforward, more CrossFit movement patterns where you're loaded and you're chasing it with like tough cardiovascular efforts. And then we have durability themed intervals that are super different, like in our world, which it's like heavy carries, Turkish get-up variations, so longer, slower grinds. And we kind of blend those into a 52-week structure. We break them down into 12-week cycles with a deload week in between. So, like in our world, this is foreign. Like this is not what happens in boutique fitness. And I think it's hard to explain, but it's why we get the results and the retention that we really do. Um, So did that break it down well enough? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a one level of distinction. So it sounds like you have 12 week blocks. So as opposed to CrossFit, that's kind of more random, we'll say.
Hmm.
You actually have like a structured, periodized 12-week block, and then a series of 12-week blocks throughout the course of a year. You have like a whole macro cycle set up.
We do as best you can in a group model, right? You have to weigh the idea of like, what if someone's coming Monday, Wednesday, Friday versus a shift worker that's coming Friday, Saturday, Sunday? You have to look at, is the individual day providing enough of the stimulus, and is any schedule getting overloaded within a 7 day structure? So I think as best as you can do in a group model without training individuals, we would periodize as best you can within a group structure. We even like the 12-week cycles break down into 2 week microcycles where we are like repeating movement patterns on the days. Just, everything in our industry is like variety, variety, chaos, and ours is very
Yeah.
structured and predictable. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually super interested in the business model. When did you take it from kind of like one to what was the goal and like really the system side of I went from one to two to three to one
Yeah.
because going from one to two, I went, oh, this is now half as cool. And then
Yeah.
three, and I was like, now it's definitely 30% as
Love
cool.
it.
Like that is, it did not get doubly as cool when I went to two as
Yeah.
I thought it was going to at the beginning part. Um, how did you kind of build number one and then realizing, oh, we've got a good model here that works, and then start to kind of begin that scaling process?
Yeah. So we owned a CrossFit gym when we started experimenting with this new model. So we were kind of out in the suburbs of Charlotte, and then we went right into the downtown young professional market and started offering this new thing. And it was real apparent quick that we were onto something because all of the weekend warriors, runners, yogis, cyclists now were training under our walls when they were terrified of the barbell kind of thing. And again, like I said, I love the barbell, nothing wrong with it, but just for being honest
Yeah.
about what opportunity was there. So, me and my business partner, two guys, no fucking clue what we were doing for growing a brand. We were very cautious on awarding franchises. We never marketed once to sell a franchise. So essentially, we were opening in markets with people we knew, good markets, not chancing anything. And in 7 years, we opened 10 units. At that point, even at 10 units in a franchise model, I think what was good is we were pretty humble knowing that if we really want to do this, like we can't just do this, the two of us. So we did take on private equity in 2019 and we kind of reformulated a game plan. It was kind of cool because we had been approached by a few different private equity firms that wanted to like just remove the founders, like here's a check, we'll take it from there. And the check wasn't a nice check to look at. So we thought we were just getting going. And our
Go
new
figure,
part,
right?
yeah, and our new partners, Z Growth Partners, which now is Metabolic, the franchising system. They said, listen, we're kind of blown away with what you two jokers have done on your own. You have 10 very successful units, and franchisees seem to
Yeah.
be happy, which is not always the norm. They said, so listen, like we're good at this kind of growth thing, and we want you to keep making this thing even better and better and better. So we took about 6 months to just kind of like blend the systems together. And then we started putting our foot on the gas right as COVID started. But it didn't really slow anything down. So like as of today, we've added 30, I think we're at 41 or 42 units open today. I'm in Tampa launching one today. We have another 40 under contract. We'll open three more in the next 45 days, Philly, Indy, and Lauderdale. And then I think we have six planned for Q2. So we'll be at that magic number 50 sometime, I think, this year, which is, I'm proud of the team. Like, we have a great team. And I still, again, I
Yeah.
think it's weird. Now I almost am saying again, I think we're just getting started. Like,
Yeah.
but I think what we're doing today won't get us to 100. like this next jump is another level of expertise. We're going to have to look
Yeah.
at how to do it correctly because it's a lot, fellas. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Coming from and seeing the CrossFit model and going from like 2005 to 2000, call it 15, 18, 20, and where it is now, like, um, I'll just say it. It feels more watered down and soulless than anything that I ever thought it would have been when I opened in 2010.
Yeah.
Um, what do you kind of like, first off, I'd love to know like where in your kind of like analysis, like where is CrossFit these days? Like what is it is there any impact that it still has on the industry?
So it has no voice in where
Yeah.
we compete. But I'm not
Yeah,
saying that's just fitness, but like we're compared to sadly like an F45 or like an I shouldn't say
yeah,
sadly, like they do good things for their consumer, right? But no one we're never worried about a CrossFit in our neighborhood.
totally.
And to
I
your
wouldn't be
point,
worried about them at all.
yeah, one of my good,
No.
I can't name drop here, but I do know some people pretty high up in the corporate structure of CrossFit. And, they tell me the same thing. They don't really have an identity right now, and they're
Yeah,
trying to claw it back. I don't know if, I'll give you my opinion. When all the shit went down with Glassman and they did
yeah,
have a chance to restructure, I was hoping they consolidated and cut the fat and went back to like the best of the best, chasing that. But it's almost like they went to, we're going to do this for everybody and now include medical. And like, it's a hell of a lift of what they're trying to do today. What attracted me to CrossFit was I walked into a room as an alpha and was met by
yeah.
alphas. And
All
I'm
the
like,
lines were
God
in there.
damn, this is
Yeah.
unreal. Like, and being
Yeah.
like 27 and ready to chase,
Yeah.
like, it was the
Let's
best,
go. I'm ready
you
to go
know?
back right now.
So I hope, and the other thing that I think is going to really hurt them, I think like High Rocks is going to take the CrossFitter of the future
Yeah,
because
the
it's
High Rocks
just
thing though isn't
scalable.
trying to create a fitness methodology. They created a cool event and
Yeah.
they're doing fantastic. CrossFit, in its original form, was creating a hypothesis about how to be fit for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That was like the walking in and a whole bunch of lions being like salivating over a barbell was the reason I did it. I was a decade in already, and I was like, wait a second, you do this too? Me and my friends are over here trying to kill each other. Now we're gonna kill you. Let's do this like right now.
Do you know
And
the other thing I think this was my experience? When we ran a CrossFit, we wanted to stay true to the methodology. Like we didn't want to have the filthy 50 every day because it was a more attractive business
yeah,
model to sell. So we actually followed the WMG pretty much like main site kind of style programming.
yeah,
And if we had a 5x5 back squat on a day, that was the workout, and your prep was to get to that core
yeah,
lift. I think when all of the specialty certs got introduced and then customized programming and open gym surfaced, you kind of fractured this community because you'd have this beautiful singular voice that now in the corner, someone's like, well, I'm doing black box method. And they thought they were better. Or I'm an Oli CrossFit, or I'm a CrossFit
Exactly.
endurance person. And it
yeah,
just like
Yeah.
you had thousands of people in this one community doing this one workout, and now it fractured with everybody doing a different version of it. And I think that I would have loved to see them get back to a main site kind of offering. That would have been so
yeah.
cool.
Those that's I can't remember who I was talking to, but I was joking around that this week, it had to have been yesterday, maybe even Friday. It's like if somebody really wanted to, if I really sat down, I feel like I could give you the first hour of the level one. Like I watched Glassman do that talk so many times, and it's still to this day like kind of it's kind of like the methodology that I train to do. Like I want to go play sports all the time. Like it is it's at the center of like what I want to be doing is playing nonstop. And
Yeah,
I lift a little bit, I run a little bit, I do air dines a little bit. I never will do a wall ball or a handstand push up or a split jerk again, but
good.
like I still align with that vision of fitness very, very well.
Yeah.
Um, all of that because I was wondering, in what you are building now, how do you keep the soul of an entity without it turning into just fighting as hard as you can for the middle, like CrossFit seems to have done over the past 4 years?
Well, a franchising system allows you to control some of that, right? So there's a non-negotiable of what happens in our gyms. The same workout that's happening today in Tampa will be happening in my hometown in Charlotte, or will be happening in Austin, Texas. And me and my partner still design all of our workouts. So there's not a negotiation there. That was built off of what I saw happen in CrossFit. I wanted to make sure that we were doing the same thing, creating a bigger conversation, and also too learning from successes and failures of what we were putting out on the floor, right? So you can control it, but here's the one thing you can't control, right? Um, like any franchisor that sits in my position, they always sell the same BS where they're like, oh, we have a turnkey model that'll just work anywhere. And I'm like, there's no such thing as turnkey humans. Like there's a human factor that comes into doing what we do or not. So here's a golden rule of franchising that everyone, when I say this out loud, all the people in my position flip out that I actually say this. But so say you have 100 franchisees or 100% of your franchisees, you'll have 20% that absolutely kill it and they print money. But those are those same guys. Like I could sell them a coffee franchise and they're going to kill it too. They're just that type of person, right? So you got 20% on the top. You got 20% that are kind of like your problem child, but nothing really surprises you there. We don't have any underperforming units where we're like, I wonder what's going on there. They just seem to be doing everything right, and it's just not like that's not a thing. You can kind of
Yeah.
see what's not happening. But then you have this 60 in the middle that do extremely well. And like we made a commitment internally that we're going to build everything for the 60 in the middle. I just was on a franchise sales call before I was on with you guys, and I will never sell him the dream of the 20%. And I also don't spend too much time talking about our underperformers. My goal is to sell a business model that 60% of people do very, very well financially within our model. And we do everything we do is built for that 60 in the middle, and we let the outliers be the outliers.
Yeah.
I think that's
Do
brilliant. I think spending too much time on either one is going to detract from your mission. I
Yeah.
think you're right with CrossFit when they start talking about weightlifting. So if you bring someone like me into CrossFit, I'm going to start being biased towards weightlifting. All right.
Yeah.
Now you have a fracture right there, right then and there. You should have just stuck with their initial, train of thought, which you're brilliant because you're not even trying to bring that even close in there. You just got what works. This definitely works. So make your money. I like this model. It's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
I actually
I'm
Appreciate
looking
that.
at the
remember when you
website the whole time.
guys, now that you say you were in Charlotte, I actually, Max, do you remember when they started opening these?
No, no.
Yeah, I
Start talking about the metabolics.
yeah, they
You're
were down in
saying?
Charlotte, and I can't remember what. I mean, it was probably what year was your first one?
2011?
Oh yeah, I totally remember this. It was like anytime that somebody had a CrossFit affiliate and then put their own name on it was like the biggest news in the world you'd ever seen. So you guys definitely that's like probably the first time I remember hearing about it. So that's awesome. 13 plus years now, 14 years of
Yeah,
cranking
and,
away.
and I got to be honest, we really have only decided to put our foot on the gas in the last five, right? And, scale, it is wild. Like this ain't an
Yeah,
easy game. When we look at, we do really, really well. 80% of our members are between 25 and 45, and they're in a very high performing like nature, right? So when we look at a Tampa market, like we'll go as far as like mapping software to look at and we'll use psychographics, not demographics. So we'll be looking at purchasing behavior, core values, and then we try to place ourselves in neighborhoods and buildings that is surrounded by like our type of people. But it's not a science, right? Because I always say this, there's two ways you can look at this, right? It's the analogy I like to give is, when you went to like a restaurant or you think of the best meal you've ever had, and you always remember kind of like that best meal in your life, right? But if you go back to like the meal, you got to ask yourself, like, was it the steak or was it, when I walked in, you had this really nice smiling person at the front or at the front counter that took me to my seat. The waiter came out and they explained the menu and helped me navigate the menu. And then you have your cooks that are doing these beautiful dishes. And if you do it right, there's the right music that complements the vibe of the facility. So like metabolic is a thing, all of that in one. So if we're not playing the right music that is grittier, like we won't pay pop music, right? So we're going to play more grittier music. Our tone is a little bit more disruptive. We're chasing a high performer. But at the same time, too, right? You still got to be kind to people. Like you can technique someone right out your door if you're an asshole. So it's not just as simple as you buy a metabolic, throw a sign on a building, and all of a sudden you're printing money. There's a lot of elements to running a business where I'm just not a believer there's a turnkey model in the world, especially in hospitality, which I would say we are in.
Yeah. How present are the owners in your franchises in the gyms? This is something I never got over in my own first business. Imagine that, of like shaking every single hand at 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. every day.
Yeah.
That like runs you into the ground.
Well, that's a tough thing to scale, right? I think to your point, you can do it as a single unit owner operator, but that I don't know. Well, we have locations that you could live off of that. I lived off one, but if you want to do multi-unit deals, you have to start learning how to build teams underneath you. I would say the most common structures is an owner operator model, but that's going to be more of a single unit deal. An absentee investor is the one I don't love, when someone just says, hey, like, this thing looks cool. I got a buttload of money and your ROIs look good. Let's just do this. That's not super attractive to me.
Yeah.
I like the owner to still take the role of like, I'm going to manage a powerhouse team below me. They don't have to shake every hand, but they better have someone shaking everybody's hand.
Yeah.
And they better look the part and be a nice human. Like, so yeah, it's a combination of everything. Now, here's the thing. When I said scale is tricky, so now I'm looking at the absentee investor. Look at this. I want to get on this train. This thing is building. I want to do this in Denver. I'm like, well, where do you do fitness? And well, I don't do fitness, but Denver would be a good market. I'm like, I don't get it, but I don't know if this is going to be the right deal here,
Yeah.
So we're a lot pickier than we haven't earned the right to be F45. You throw an F45 on a building in America, enough people know we're not there yet. We haven't earned that right. I hope one day we can create that level of traction, but we're not there yet. So we have to be a little bit pickier, I think.
Yeah. Just even talking about F45, I'm first off, Doug, remember their awesome sales pitch? Their 13 things. Do you know that the rower uses 87% of your body? I don't know what 13% it doesn't, but I heard that twice in like a 15-minute long sales pitch. And then a new person came over and said the same thing to me. And I was like, this is good. This is why you guys have 7,000 locations inside the United States right now. I have noticed, and maybe it's just because it's like more of an established brand. When these things like, and maybe it's like a critical mass of like, you guys hit a number, maybe it's like 200 or something along those lines. But I feel like there's all of a sudden there's a tipping point to the like, this is the thing. And CrossFit obviously went through it. F45 totally went through it. Orange Theory went through it. Oh, that's where we were. Not F45. It was Orange Theory. They they had their huge people were chasing splat points. I was in San Diego and I saw their convention and it was like a
Crazy.
zillion people dressed in orange at it. I could not believe how many, but then they all kind of um it seems like they hit a plateau. Not and I don't think it's of studios that they're opening, but of general excitement for the brand. Is there one, have you noticed that with kind of those bigger brands? And then how do you kind of hedge against that to keep the excitement going when something does kind of hit a critical mass?
So, I can tell you my opinion, and we have four main partners in the business now, and they may disagree with me because obviously our private equity arm wants to grow, right? So, but like for me, but collectively, here's the decision we made 5 years ago. We said, so let's target the top 50 cities in America, and based on density, let's put 2 to 5 locations there. And we think if we do that without being greedy, that could get us to 150 locations. And I can tell you this, if we do that, everybody is rich and everybody is very happy, right? What I don't know to your question is, does that now make you a noun, a living, breathing thing that everybody knows? And does that give you the opportunity to chance sleepier markets you wouldn't have done in the past? I don't know. I know personally, I'd be happy opening 100 powerhouse units and be this, I realize this comes from a little bit of ego. Like I'm not looking really to fit in. I want everybody to know we're the best at what we do. And I want, when we're in a neighborhood, people to know that these can be very successful companies, but if you want to be at your best, there's no question, right? So if at the end of the day we opened, let's even use those statistics, like we opened 100 units and 60 of them were really good, 20 of them were unbelievable, and 20 of them were just underachieving a bit, I could sleep. I'm good. I'm good. I'm completely good. So my
Yeah.
family's good. My loved ones are good. Life is great. I'm traveling. I'm in Tampa opening gyms, and it was something we started on a napkin over a couple
Yeah.
Guinnesses, in 2010, and life is good. I got no complaints.
Yeah.
And all yours are all standalone. You don't have any inside of something thing, do you? Or
No, but
not?
like that's where I'm glad you asked that, Travis, because like where I would like to get creative is not like oversaturating a market. But if you could ever, at one point, like at 45, chance going into like college, like weight rooms, like what a cool idea. Or so that stuff would be cool. I don't think, well, I know I don't, how do I say this? I don't think we would become a Les Mills type where any YMCA could buy the concept and put it in their doors.
Yeah.
But let's say because we're chasing excellence, right? So let's say an Equinox or a Lifetime Fitness wanted to have a conversation. Okay, that's
Honestly,
different.
yeah.
But I'm not going to the Y. That's not
Yeah.
happening, right? So the right,
I see where you're coming from. Sure.
yeah, yeah.
I think that you should go to every single giant state university because I was at NC State this weekend, and their gym is 4 stories
Oh yeah.
Sick.
tall.
Yeah.
Sure.
I could not believe it was like dark outside, so you could see all the lights on in there, and I was like, "Is that the bat? Holy crap!" At 4 levels, every single level was different with all of its own special vibe. I was like, they could just put one little CrossFit PB in there, and we'd have been good. One
No, I agree.
metabolic.
Like, no, I think it's, and I think the industry is evolving so rapidly, but I look at it a lot different than what everybody's looking at. One of the most interesting things, I was in New York for a big Athletech News held a thing called the CEO Summit. And essentially they had like some of the top people in a room for a day, and we got to do the NASDAQ closing bell. It was a really cool experience, but I was like the smallest fish like in this room. Like the CEO of Aura was speaking, the CEO of Whoop was there, like, and I was listening to like what they were seeing. Here's what I find super interesting. The biggest takeaway. So visits are up from 2019 to today, so before COVID, right? Like we're back. Visits are up. Here's what I do find interesting. There's a consolidation, so there's less competition, and the wellness wallet is what they call it. So people are spending more on themselves per month than they were, but we're not adding any new members. So like the same 20 to 25% of people that belong to gyms, they're belonging to multiple gyms now. It's not like we're adding these new categories. So what I find super interesting about, everyone talks about like, is boutique going to grow? Is GLP-1s going to play a big role here, which I don't think it's going to create the I don't think it's going to have the effect people think on like a boutique market, right? Maybe it creates a new category. But the one thing I am noticing, the big box gyms are actually getting cool.
Yeah,
Like
they're
they're
super cool.
getting better now,
100%.
They're very cool.
Lifetime Fitness is super
I've been in
cool.
one for like the last 3 years. I
right?
can tell you how cool they are.
I want a
The,
Lifetime so bad.
the
Yeah.
reason, the reason, in my opinion, that big gyms are cool now is because high school kids are strong. Like
Yeah.
adults move pretty well because they all watched Doug Larson do Technique Wand and learned how to move well. And high school kids are super strong. You like that? You like that, bud? I got
Love
you in
it.
here.
Love that plug.
The the plug to 5 years ago's series, 8 years ago's series,
Oh my
how to
God.
do a push-up, first one. But high school kids are super strong. Like I looked over at a kid the other day that had 4 plates and a 25 on each side and hit it for a set of five, and it was beautiful. And I went, oh, that's way different than when I was
Yeah.
that age. Like that
Yeah.
is, and that's because you got to have like,
Not way different than when I was a kid, but go ahead.
well, you're different. You're different.
Well, here's the other
But you gotta
component
have
to it.
young dudes and girls trying very hard to build culture in a gym. And when we were doing the CrossFit thing, it was like 24-year-olds trying to kill each other in there every single
Yeah.
day to get their name at the top. And that creates the culture and the vibe. And you can do that now. Everyone's just got headphones on. They got their own music, but everybody's
Well,
works really hard and moves well.
yeah, and you're so right, because the hardest consumer to get in boutique, right? Because a lot of people think it's very female driven, which it is. We have a good split. We're like a 65-35, which in boutique is like unheard of.
Yeah.
But the male consumer today, 20 to 30, I mean, bodybuilding is back. Like it's big right now, and
Yeah.
strength training is huge. But the other component, like what Travis said about dying for a lifetime, I'm the same way. There's rumors in Charlotte that Equinox and Lifetime are bidding on a site like right in the middle of the city, which would be cool. Whenever I'm in, we have a place in West Palm Beach. I'll shoot to the Palm Beach location just for a day pass because it's fun to see the new shit happening, right? But like, picture this being a consumer. If the membership's about 300 a month, but you walk in and you're like, you know what? They have an almost metabolic class. They have an almost soul cycle. It's good
Yeah.
enough. And then they also have a sauna, they have a cold tub, and they have a beautiful juice bar, and they have the scene is there. Like we've seen this in the UK for a long time. They have beautiful health clubs, and I think we're just seeing the first wave of these beautiful health clubs in the United States. And I love that. Like I love competition. We seem to be best in markets that are the most competitive. So I'm like, bring it all. Like I love it.
Yeah.
Just more people doing cool shit.
Yeah. Who's going to win the Stanley Cup this year? The only answer is Connor McDavid.
I want it for him so bad because as a player, I can't even fathom what this guy can do.
He's
It
unreal.
just like
Yeah.
if I went out on the ice with my 9-year-old, I couldn't do what he does to the best players in the world to my
Yeah.
9-year-old. Like he's just poetry in
Yeah.
motion to watch this guy play.
Yeah. Yeah, whoever comes out of the West is gotta win. Florida doesn't have a
Yeah.
chance this year. The problem is McKinnon and the dude that they just got from Carolina are freakishly fast. Like
McKinnon's
faster.
awesome.
You can't even watch it on TV. It's so fast. The cameraman cannot keep up when he takes 3 steps.
Yeah.
Um,
And if
And
McDavid
there's-
wasn't there,
Yeah,
McKinnon is like, he's right there.
they're
McKinnon's
it's
awesome.
1A and
Do
1B
you
best in the
think
world.
before we leave, do you think High Rocks will take over CrossFit? Do you think they're going to
I've never
be the
seen the
next thing?
financials, but I think that High Rocks actually has a more scalable, cooler chance because it's a very repeatable model. I just don't know much
Yeah.
about the business of it. But CrossFit, I bet if you looked at the total number of CrossFit competitions that happen in a state from 2015, 2016, like that time to today, it's like 20% of that number.
Well, here's my take. They wanted to partner with us. And it's funny, an old drinking buddy is now pretty high up with them. So like we were having conversations for the past 6 months, and we were really close. My biggest thing, to your point, is I didn't want to do High Rocks programming within our walls
Yeah.
because I'm like, listen, we have people competing in your races, placing without doing any of the training. It's not that I just think our
Yeah,
training is better. Now, here's what I
I
don't.
like this guy.
The biggest thing that threw me off was
He just shit all over his buddy right there.
nah, he's a good dude.
It's
And by
all
the way,
good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I sent them
I shit
all
all
a
over my
nice
buddies too. It's cool.
I sent them all a nice letter of why I wasn't doing it. And I said, listen, it just doesn't help us. In fact, like we could expose a group of our membership and excite them about something we don't do. I wish you all the best and all this, but I think for now we're going to keep having people do the races, just not take on the affiliation, and like maybe there'll be opportunities in the future. To go back to will High Rocks take over CrossFit? I may have positioned it wrong, meaning I think the person, us at 25 that found CrossFit, I think that new wave of person won't go to CrossFit. They'll chase High Rocks today.
Got it.
So I don't
Got
think
it.
it's going to eliminate the legacy, the Kool-Aid drinkers. They're not going anywhere. But the new wave of fire breather at 25, what can he do today? Or
Yeah.
she? I could
All
see
right.
that happening.
Are people still drinking the Kool-Aid though? Will they get any new Kool-Aid drinkers? I mean, somebody just died. Like, I don't know.
I, I don't think so. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah. I know
Unless
it's
something
rough.
like radical happened and
Yeah.
it was like we're going back to being the best in the world and F everybody else around us, I think that could change the narrative, but I think it's grown into something different. And by the way, too, what they're trying to accomplish with this whole health approach is a pretty noble thing. I think it's gonna be a tough lift, but fuck, good for them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Brandon, where can people learn more?
Metabolic.com is, if you're interested in like franchise information, I think our Instagram account's probably we got a fun, cheeky tone. So I think people will like just seeing what we do. And then I am super active on LinkedIn. It's where I kind of have isolated all of my
Yeah.
business kind of communications, stay away from all the other channels. So you can find me pretty easily on LinkedIn, just, my name.
There you go. Travis Mash.
Ashley.com. The next couple weeks, finally got a really good team. Thank God.
Did you win
And
pickleball this weekend?
no, but I got my look.
No, not actually
Oh,
you.
you got your
Not
paddle.
actually you. That
Oh,
guy
yeah, he
that
did.
guy- yeah, of course.
That guy played. He did good. But it was a weird thing. He did for some reason there was a mix up. So he did. It's the number one guy in the world didn't get to do singles, but he got to do doubles and did great. He's doing great. So
There you go.
he sent me some paddles. I'm super excited to go play pickleball.
Give that new hip.
I love that dude. Can you believe that I am becoming besties with the pickleball guy? I love this dude. We are
I know.
I'm helping him do his home gym. I'm so excited.
Dude,
He's great.
He found
loves
the
to clean.
strongest man in the world, and you found a pickleball guy that wants
I
to
found
listen and learn
pickleball.
from
Now
the
that I have a
old
new
wise
hip,
man,
I'm ready to get it.
the old wise man himself. Sensei
Yeah.
Mash. Doug Larson.
Yeah, I was watching him on YouTube just the other day doing the pickleball thing. Dude slays. I'm on
Yeah.
Instagram, Douglas C. Larson.
Yo, I saw a commercial with him on it on YouTube popped up. They were selling probably that racket you just held up, and one of my kids said something. I go, "Yeah, that's our client," and they were like, "You know him?" who's doing some crazy pickleball thing. I don't know what they do. It's crazy.
He's the coolest client ever. Like, I love that guy.
So I'm Anders Varner at
Ben
Anders
Johns,
Varner.
you're my guy.
We are Barbell Shrugged at Barbell_Shrugged. You weren't supposed to say his name.
Yeah,
get
I
over
asked
to-
him.
Oh, did you? Get over to RTA.
Yeah, I asked him if I could shout him out. And he said yes.
That's where all the labs, performance analysis, and testing, and you can learn more. Schedule a call with me, rtlab.com. Friends, we'll see you guys next week.